The crystalline walls of the Thoracian ceremonial chamber refracted light in impossible angles, casting geometric shadows that seemed to exist in more dimensions than Lisa's human eyes could properly process. She stood among the diplomatic contingent from Earth, her heart hammering against her ribcage as the alien child, no larger than a human toddler but infinitely more complex, drifted through the assembled crowd on gossamer wings that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. Kivin stood 3 meters to her left, his jaw tight with the same tension that gripped every human in the hall. As the mission's xenobiologist, he'd briefed them all on the Raxian bonding rituals, but knowing the theory and experiencing the reality were vastly different things. The child was called a Veilakran in the Thoracian language, a term that roughly translated to future weaver. According to Kiven's research, the queen's offspring possessed a form of quantum consciousness that existed partially outside linear time. They could perceive probability streams, potential futures branching like cosmic dendrites through the fabric of spacetime itself. And this particular Veilakran was about to choose a guardian from among the visiting species. Lisa had reviewed the intelligence reports during the 6-month journey through compressed space to reach the Raxus Prime. The selection of a guardian was more than ceremonial. It was a binding covenant that would link 2 civilizations for generations. The chosen individual would serve as a bridge between species, their neural patterns permanently altered by the quantum entanglement that would occur the moment the Veilakran made contact. No human had ever been chosen before. In the 300-year history of the Raxian diplomatic relations with other species, they'd selected Jathic empaths, Chronite hive minds, and once, memorably, a crystalline intelligence from the Andromeda sector. But never a human. The odds Kiven had calculated were 0.003%. The Veilakran paused before Ambassador Tchaikovsky, its multifaceted eyes, 12 of them, arranged in a crown around its elongated skull, studying the gray-haired diplomat with an intensity that made the temperature in the immediate vicinity drop by 2 degrees Celsius. Lisa's heads-up display confirmed the reading. The Thoracian child's quantum processing was drawing thermal energy from the environment. Then it moved on. Through the crowd it drifted, its movements governed by aerodynamic principles that shouldn't have worked in the Raxus Prime's dense atmosphere. But the Veilakran didn't just fly. It existed in a state of controlled quantum uncertainty, its position probabilistic until directly observed. Lisa had watched Kiven's presentation on the phenomenon 3 times and still couldn't fully wrap her mind around it. The child approached the Jathic delegation next. Their empathic field extended like invisible tentacles, trying to sense the Veilakran's emotional state, but the child simply phased through their influence as though it existed on a different vibrational frequency entirely. Lisa felt a strange pulling sensation in her chest. It wasn't physical, or rather, it wasn't only physical. She'd experienced something similar during her training on Europa Station, when they'd exposed her to the quantum resonance chambers to test for latent psionic sensitivity. The testing had been mandatory for all deep space diplomatic personnel after the Kepler incident, when a human ambassador's unshielded consciousness had accidentally disrupted an entire hive negotiation. Her results had been inconclusive, neither positive nor negative, just strange. The technicians had noted unusual alpha wave patterns, neural activity that suggested her consciousness operated on frequencies slightly offset from baseline human norms. She'd never thought much about it until now. The Veilakran was closer, the pulling sensation intensified. Around the hall, the assembled dignitaries from a dozen star systems held their collective breath. The Thoracian queen herself, a magnificent being whose body seemed to be composed of living starlight contained within a roughly humanoid framework, watched from her elevated throne with those same multifaceted eyes that her child possessed. Kiven caught Lisa's gaze across the crowd. His expression was unreadable, but she knew him well enough after 2 years working together. He was analyzing, calculating, trying to determine what was happening based on observable data. That was Kivend's gift and his curse, a brilliant scientific mind that sometimes missed the forest for the trees. The Valakron stopped directly in front of Lisa. The entire hall froze. Not metaphorically, literally froze. Lisa felt the temporal distortion wash over her like a wave of crystallized possibility. Everyone except her, the child, and the queen existed in a state of suspended animation, caught between one microsecond and the next, as the Valakron's quantum consciousness expanded to encompass the entire chamber. "You perceive the branches," the child said, though its mouth, if it could be called a mouth, didn't move. The words formed directly in Lisa's mind, each syllable carrying layers of meaning that human language couldn't fully capture. "I don't understand," Lisa thought back, somehow knowing the Valakron would hear her. "Most beings exist on a single thread of time, experiencing only the now that is. But you dream of the nows that could be. Your mind touches the probability streams even without training. Raw, undisciplined, but present." Images flooded Lisa's consciousness. She saw herself as the child saw her, not as a three-dimensional being moving through four-dimensional spacetime, but as a five-dimensional construct, a probability cloud of all the versions of herself that might exist across countless quantum branches. Some versions where she'd never left Earth, others where she died in the Mars colony collapsed 15 years ago. Timelines where humanity had never developed faster than light travel, and ones where they'd already colonized half the galaxy. But in every timeline the Valakron showed her, there was one constant, a thread of connection between Lisa's consciousness and something vast and strange that existed beyond normal spacetime. A potential that most humans never accessed, buried deep in the quantum foam of her neural architecture. "The other species we have bonded with possess this gift naturally," the child continued. "But humanity is young. Your kind has only just begun to touch the deeper waters of consciousness. Most of you cannot perceive what lies beneath, but you can. You will learn. You will teach others." "Why me?" The question burst from Lisa's mind unbidden. The Valakron tilted its head, and for a moment Lisa saw through its eyes, saw the infinite branching paths of the future spreading out like a cosmic tree. In most branches, humanity remained isolated, never fully integrating with the galactic community, always outsiders looking in. But in the branches where the child chose Lisa, everything changed. Humanity's latent psionic potential awakened. Within 3 generations, human minds would be interfacing directly with quantum consciousness fields, contributing to the collective evolution of galactic civilization. "Because," the child said simply, "you will say yes. In 83.4% of observable futures, you accept the bond, and in 97.1% of those futures, humanity flourishes." The temporal freeze released. Time slammed back into normal flow with an almost audible crack. The Valakron extended one delicate, 3-fingered hand toward Lisa. Its skin seemed to be made of the same substance as the chamber walls, crystalline, refractive, containing impossible depths. Lisa looked at Kivend. His eyes were wide with shock and something else, pride perhaps, or fear for what she was about to become. She looked at the queen, whose expression remained unreadable but whose posture suggested approval. She looked at the Valakron, this child who perceived reality in ways that humans were only beginning to understand, who had somehow seen in Lisa a potential she hadn't known she possessed. In the end, there was only one choice she could make. Lisa reached out and took the child's hand. The quantum entanglement occurred instantaneously. Lisa felt her neural pathways restructuring, new connections forming as her consciousness expanded to touch the probability streams the Valakron had shown her. It wasn't painful. If anything, it felt like waking up from a dream she'd been having her entire life, suddenly aware of dimensions of reality that had always existed but which she'd never been able to perceive. She could see them now. The branching futures, the probability clouds, the vast quantum landscape of potentiality that underlay all of existence. And she could see Kivan, rushing toward her with concern etched on his face, moving through a cloud of potential futures where he became her research partner in unlocking humanity's psionic heritage, where he helped her build the first quantum consciousness training facility on Earth, where they. Lisa smiled as the visions cascaded through her newly expanded awareness. The entire hall remained frozen in stunned silence, but for an entirely different reason now. The Veilachron had made its choice, and nothing would ever be the same.